One, two, three, four.
And welcome back, guys, to another episode of Breakfast with Brothers.
The Breakfast Brothers are back at you, hot and stinky as per usual. We're coming at you with a interesting topic today, and hopefully we'll be able to hear from you guys and thoughts about new topics. But with that in mind, what are we putting the people on to today, buddy?
Great question. Well, today we're going to be talking about baked goods of the baked variety.
And the baking that goes into it. Because I've always wondered how we've gotten to this point. Of course, modern baking techniques have come a long way. You can find any recipe anywhere on the internet for whatever you want to make. Could be chocolate cream pie, one of my personal favorites. Could be Pop-Tart, homemade, like what you would buy at the grocery store, you know. Or it could even be something as simple as a cookie. Who knows? Point being, we've made it a very, very long way in concoctions and mixing and experimentation, a lot of it, to get to the point where we can actually eat a delicious baked good. So I don't know. I guess the big overarching question that I'm wondering is, for Ian, I guess we'll see what he has to say. Who decided to throw together flour, eggs, milk, and then just pull something out of it? Like, who do you think decided that and why?
Well, to kind of extend your thought a bit, your question, I want to kind of give a little, more to it. So, the question is, how did we come about this? Yeah. So, what I want to add to that before I truly answer the question is people in general testing things out before we knew they were either poisonous, dangerous to our body, detrimental in some way, like down the line, what is technically edible and inedible, so on and so forth. Obviously you had all these guys that have done it first. That's like not to break away, I'll just say it quickly, but safety wise too, it's oh, well, this guy died because he was doing this, and now we know, and the safety measures are in place type deal. So it's the same thing for food as well. So to answer your question, a lot of testing. I think people have just kind of,
Huge number.
Yeah, they obviously found out ages ago because, there was definitely types of cakes or even different variety of bread and such like that. The list can go on. I'm sure there's, fruits have been around for as long as humans, if not longer, who knows? Probably longer. I shouldn't say that. Don't quote me. But point is that, these things have been around. Obviously there was people that tested whether the berries were good to eat or not good to eat. So
and in that it's those people died for a burnt chocolate chip cookie. That had to have been an awful experience,
oh yeah,
you died testing out some type of berry for a muffin, and then come to find out 3 days later you died, and then the muffins weren't even good. That had to have been awful. That.
Yeah.
That test, that experimentation, just putting that as a failure in the book, you're just you lost a good guy over that.
Dude, it's like foraging for mushrooms, right? Because there's just millions of toxic mushrooms, Amanita muscularia. I don't know. Don't quote me on that either. But that's the Super Mario mushroom, where in essence it makes you feel like you're growing. Is the side effect of it, and then obviously death. But that's how they came about it, for those who don't know. But yeah, just the same with that, foraging mushrooms, obviously to make some sort of stew. Since we're talking about baked goods, we can go towards certain types of berries that aren't able to, aren't edible. Right. So whatever, some guy named Jimmy down the road, his I don't know, his mother-in-law made him some boysenberry pie or something like that, or like a boysenberry, like what do you call it?
Strudel.
Like a small, like yeah, strudel pie, whatever, like a small pie. And he's like, "Oh boy, delicious!" Eats it, dies right on the spot. And it's like, oh my god.
Well, someone had to make your sacrifice somewhere, and in thinking about that perfect thought of the ultimate testers, all of these people eventually got to that point where they started recognizing colors of certain fruits and vegetables were off-putting, something that you should stay
Right.
away from. Because I know for us, coming up as well, it was the same thing with animals. If animals were spotted, or they had vibrant colors, or something of the like, they should be avoided. So I think once they got past that stage of testing for the and finding out that certain vibrant colors were bad for you, they were just like, all right, let's stay to the more neutral side of things, because getting flour probably became easy. You know, that plant via what is it? Enriched wheat. You know, wheat is beige, like it's tan. There's not much going on with that.
Yeah.
And then thinking about what butter is, I'm sure it took them a very, very long while to find out that they could milk goats or cows to get raw milk. And then from there, obviously they weren't homogenizing the milk or doing anything early on. So raw milk, they were probably just, my immune system's going to eat this and I'm going to be perfect.
They're
and then what
just
else did they throw
swigging
in there?
that stuff down.
Eggs. I mean, if they had chickens, they saw they were laying eggs, they were probably like, it's yellow, not too crazy, probably totally fine. And then after they were sharing it with the whole community, bam, they started throwing it together with all the other ingredients there. And then, I don't know, I guess that's probably when fruit started getting involved. They probably did like the very basic baking. You know, they made like plain cakes, like no flavoring, just like all four of those basic ingredients together, and they came out with a sugar cookie on one end. And they're like, oh, you know what? Let's add a little bit less of this and a little more of this. And they were like, oh, okay, so now it's more cakey. Now I can bake a cake type thing. And then, of course, they were probably not calling these things by the names we know them by today.
What the hell
but
is this shit?
they had to have gotten to a point where they were baking things and the consistency was changing. So they just started using their indigenous languages and just pointing and labeling. So at that point, they were just like, okay, well, we know this much of this will do that, that much of that will do that. So then why not just meet somewhere in the middle and see what happens here? Or, you know, go to the extreme ends of the spectrum and then really see what happens. And I think it was that point when barriers were broken, nobody was dying. You know, it was safe tests. It was just a matter of how much of this plant material can I grow and really, you know, get to a point of testing where I'm comfortable knowing like my measurable amounts. So I don't know. I mean, how long do you think it took for them to stop killing off each other and get to a comfortable point of baking and testing?
Well, I would say baking goes back very, very far back. Because, I mean, obviously fruit's been around for quite some time, and I'm sure they figured it out, because I would say a lot of earlier people probably watched like animals eat these certain types of fruit. You know,
Oh, the
whether it
animal
had,
plants. That's a great
Yep.
point.
I believe, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, anyone who knows more than I do. But I believe like the Native Americans kind of, I shouldn't say they coined it, but I know that they were at least one type of person to watch the animals eat certain types of food, and then they found out it was safe for, you know, them to eat in that manner. Now, that's not always the case. There are animals that eat things that humans necessarily shouldn't be eating.
Right, that's true.
Some of their certain types of animals' stomachs process food a little bit differently, but I don't know specifics on that.
Well, I
besides
think as
the
a
point.
quick sidebar on your idea of that, they were probably watching the animals that they ate. You know, deer, bear, rabbits,
True.
fish, things like that. The animals that they were eating. And I'm sure they had to go through the same process of, oh, can I eat this animal, whatever. And that's what we were just discussing about the colors and having the people who tested. Because akin to baking, they had to do the same thing for cooking. You know, because they weren't
Right.
concocting these 7 ingredients together. They were just slapping something over a fire, a 1-ingredient meal, which made sense for a majority of the time. They got their major protein taken care of. They were satiated for, you know, a whole day most of the time. They weren't pigging out like we are now. They pretty much just ate until they were satiated and then stopped, saved more for the rest of their family, whatever it was. And to make a long story short, this all wraps around into this little group of a small segment of what we're talking about today, baking. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd like to think that the Native Americans had a big part in being able to make those early decisions for us. But I will say that they probably weren't focused as much on baking and putting together pastries and desserts as they were trying to survive and make sure that they had their initial, daily intake, I guess you could call it, for first and foremost.
Yeah, truthfully, I don't know how far like baked goods go back. It could be some, good amount of time, truthfully. Um,
While you talk, I
besides
want to
the
check the
point.
origins.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Baked goods are interesting because it's more or less like you were saying before, it's like, they eat until they're satiated. Satiated? Um Sated? I don't know.
Ah,
They ate
good
until
point.
they were full.
Ate
Yeah.
until they were full. And speaking of Native Americans, I guess in and around I guess Native Americans survived in and around this same time, but a bit previous. 6,500 years old. Ancient baking. The Egyptians were pioneers in baking
I knew it.
because they were the first recorded civilization to use yeast in their bread. So as simple as that, being able to find something that would give depth to what you're baking and make it light, airy, and fluffy. So yeast, even as just as that added ingredient to your flour and water, considered baking for sure.
Yeah, I
So
had I had a feeling the
The Roman
Egyptians.
Empire's Bakers Guild, established around 168 BC. What?
Sick.
The Bakers
Sick.
Guild. Hell yeah.
Listen, man, Greek and Roman times were different. Everyone had their specialty that they sat into. That's what kind of quick sidebar. That's what kind of differs from like our society from their society, whereas they kind of honed everything, but once you found what you were really good at, that was what you went with.
Mm.
It wasn't like, I shouldn't say it wasn't choice. You had choice, but um they like went to the T on how things should be done within that like study. So, could be creating art, whether it's sculpting. Um, I don't know if there was too heavy on painting, but sculpting was a big one. Arithmetic, philosophy, um, people of the state for government, um, so on and so forth. You get the ideal. But
Yeah,
um,
finances, childcare, social hierarchies.
everything that kind of builds a society, they had like separate sects for, and it's really neat. So I definitely believe like the Romans had a baking guild. Like that just makes perfect sense. If you were good at cooking or baking at all, I would understand like why they would have like a certain sect, so that you can just go and do that all day.
They were probably the people there that were figuring stuff out. Now, I don't know exactly what the time frame was for Native Americans being alive at the same time as the Romans, before Christ there and everything. Um, but I guess it would make sense that, since they're across the pond, so to say, that there definitely were some type, even if we weren't calling the people that were indigenous to what was the obviously it wasn't the United States of America at that time. We'll just call it the North American area. There
Yeah,
were
North
indigenous
America, that's
people
fine.
that were there inhabiting the land, etc. And whether or not they would be called Native Americans based around that similar time that the Romans were doing their thing, I'm sure that akin to a baking guild there, the other people that were in and around the world doing their own thing were rocking and socking with, well, who knows? In this case, they could have just been baking bread, which at its simplest form makes sense. They weren't trying to refine other products to make stuff like sugar. They weren't trying to make things sweet on purpose, I'm sure, up until a point where they were like, you know what? I want to enjoy my food a little more. I'm trying to get a sweet vibration in this guy.
Well, I think that's where I was going with my thought before you brought in the Egyptians.
Mm.
Like I was using what you were saying, like they were eating until they were full.
Yeah.
So they weren't really like thinking, not that, and it feeds into your point about something being sweet, having sugar and such. Um, you know, to them it would be sweet either way with a type of like fruit or a berry, or apple, in our case, a lot of
That's
apples,
true with the
pears.
fruit. That's true.
But they weren't necessarily looking for something sweet. For the most part, they were. I think it was more so just like I need to eat, rather than have like a nice little treat after dinner.
No, right. Something that was filling, something that you could share with more than just yourself, something that could feed, a small family, etc. Yeah, that
Right.
definitely
So
was a different stable of priorities for them versus what
right.
what we think about now.
Yeah, and so now people have, I'm sure, over time have developed more of a sweet tooth, and it's not because it's not necessarily because we want it. I think there's to some extent that we need something a little bit different than just savory all the time. Um, I don't know if it's something in the body that does that, but everyone likes a little bit of sweet, some more than others, and that could be some chemical imbalance as well. If you hanker more for something sweet, in the sense of like you might be missing something. I've heard things like you might be missing um, certain proteins or something in your system is for not forcing you, but essentially telling you like, oh, you would really like something sweet. But now I'm getting off topic. Point is, I would say back in the day, a sweet, bakery item wouldn't be necessarily sought after in the fact of like getting food, just in general. So with that, I would say like baked goods kind of started getting more popular as people started developing more of like a hankering for something sweet, or they began to get food much easier, had more time to experiment and learn these things themselves.
Yeah, your
Um,
second
it-
point there would make the most sense. You have more time available to be able to make these things and eat them. Because
right.
for those same people who were trying to get by or didn't have a lot of money to purchase baked goods or whatever, bread, I'm sure, was the cheapest thing available to them. And then I'm
Yeah.
thinking about the upper rich class, the people who were the elitists of those times, through and through, up until where we are now. Those people who had access to, good financials or new people or etc. didn't have to worry about money or currency or whatever. They could happily buy these baked goods. They could host parties with these baked goods. They could get crazy with it. They could hire people to make these things. So I think that was a thing too, was access. Because if you were someone who was not so financially blessed, you would probably be focusing on, like you said, making sure your family was fed, making sure you had a meal, at least one in the day that you were, working, doing whatever. Um, so I'm imagining to some degree there was a difference of worlds, and we still could see that a little bit today, maybe a lot of it. But at least today, everyone everywhere, even we'll even say the financially unblessed, people who are homeless, etc. They will sometimes get a chance from people who bless them or homeless shelters, what have you, to be able to try stuff like that. So, it goes without saying that there is a super abundance of sweets and baked goods today because there's so many
Oh
people
yeah.
who work in bakeries and grocery stores that have bake shops and stuff like that who are just testing out new things, pumping out whatever because they're designated to do just that. People who make wedding cakes, people who cater for dessert events, etc., parties, whatever. Like it's become so much more a part of our current living situation in our society than what it was because we can afford those moments. It's not all, oh my gosh, we have to go hunting today to find our food or else we're gonna starve.
We're
You
not
know,
going
it's
to eat.
yeah, we're pretty much for at least the upper lower class, middle class, and then all of the upper, the highest end class, we all can operate to a point where at least hopefully, I'm not trying to drown out anyone who is suffering or, having a hard time getting by, but for the people that can live in a house or an apartment, buy their food, buy their water, buy their essentials, have everything that they need surrounding them, can easily go and, be like, you know what? I want a fruit roll up today. Or, you know what? I'm going to buy myself an apple pie. And it's kind of just like, not that you need it, but you're just like, you know what? I'm craving it. And there's not this need to worry about where your next meal is going to come from because this is just an
Right.
accessory to your meal. This is something to add a little bit of flavor in your life, literally.
Yeah. I got you. So okay. I think we stapled that point pretty damn hard. Um, so let's go on to something a little bit lighter. What's your favorite pastry or baked item?
All right, I will say, chocolate cream pie has been a long time favorite of mine, and basically is unmatched against other pastries just because it's a classic.
Okay, wait.
But
Wait,
rhubarb
hold on.
comes. Hold on, wait,
Hold
wait.
on.
Whoa.
So why don't we do this? Favorite type of pie, favorite type of like smaller pastry, favorite type of cookie. I feel like those are three pretty good. Like pastry itself can like,
Well, we
it
could
could
do breads. We could do cakes, pies. I don't know.
bread,
Fourth,
cake,
fifth.
pie, pastry. Because a
Yeah.
pastry is not necessarily a
And
pie
cookie,
or a
yeah.
cake, and cookie. So bread, cake, pie, pastry, cookie. All right, let's see them. I got one up for your bread.
Well, bread for me is definitely sourdough, 100%.
Mhm.
Cake for me, it's probably classic like angel food cake vanilla vibe. Gas.
Okay. Pie.
Pie. I've since changed my opinion to strawberry rhubarb pie. Absolutely incredible.
Strawberry rhubarb.
Number four.
Pastry.
Ooh, probably an apple strudel, like apple turnover. Gas.
Apples. Okay. All right. And then
Cookie.
cookie.
Yeah, that's a toughie. Wow. Honestly, a super put together, very well made, not overcooked, not undercooked, perfectly iced sugar cookie.
Thinking of a good sugar cookie right now.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
Classic.
Good
Simple,
choice. It's a good
plain.
choice.
I mean, chocolate chip cookie, I was really vibing on it. I love soft chocolate chip cookies, crunchy chocolate chip cookies, whatever. But I'm thinking of something that always puts me on my butt. Just something that I'm just like, whoa, taken aback.
All right. All right.
What do you got?
Well, so I'm gonna have to agree with you on sourdough. Love sourdough.
Classic.
It is just a top tier. Cake. What did you say for your cake? Angel food cake,
Angel
right?
food cake, vanilla flavorish vibe.
Honestly, love a good devil's food cake. I gotta go opposite on
Chocolate.
you.
I
Yeah,
really wanted to go chocolate, but I have a soft spot in my heart for vanilla flavored things.
yeah. So I went the exact opposite. Devil's food cake. Um, what was the next one? Pie.
Pie.
So many good pies. I'm gonna have to go with like an apple pie. Like that's just solid choice for me. I will never not enjoy a good apple
Always
pie.
good. Never a mistake
Even like
to eat apple pie.
I mean, truthfully, an apple pie can also range to like the apple crumble as well, because it's basically an apple pie. It just has like
Oh,
the
like an
cinnamon
apple
chunks.
crisp? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So truthfully, any type of apple pie of the variety, delicious. And then pastry, I'm gonna have to go with like a solid cinnamon roll.
Oh man, forgot about the rolls.
Cinnamon rolls, dude.
Classic.
And
Extra
then
good.
cookie, man. I am a absolute fiend for the black and white cookies.
Oh yeah, but they can't be that cakey BS bottom. They have to be, I don't even know how to describe it. They have to be like that.
It's got to hold
It's like
itself
a cookie
together.
sugary dough, except it's a little
Yeah.
airy. It's not as like solid.
See, like, I don't mind the cake, but I agree with Zach where it's like if I'm eating them, like let's say like I take it home from like a diner or something, right? And like I want to have it later, so I leave it in the fridge. Or if I leave it out, I want to still be able to hold the cookie
Mm-hmm.
because if you get the cake one, like don't get. I like it. I don't mind it, but it also bothers me that I can't pick up my cookie without it getting stuck to my hand, and falling apart or just like everything melting.
That's the thing, because on those cake cookies, they're using icing like buttercream icing. But on the
Yep,
other
so that's what I
normal,
mean. So
actual
everything's
black and white cookies, it's that hard icing that you could like knock on.
yes, that's where I was getting to. So Zach is right. That is the better type of black and white cookie because you can actually hold the cookie and it's still just as light and just as airy. It just has like an outer, like a harder outer layer so you can actually hold the cookie. So yeah, those are my choices.
I think that's an incredible take. Those cookies are bomb. And you go to a diner that makes a good cookie. Ian and I went to this Italian market not too long ago. They make sandwiches, they make pizzas, they make the cookies. But I didn't want to get into the black and white cookies from there because they made the cake cookies. But it just made me think of a cookie that I've always known and loved, and that deserves a very reasonable shout out. Is the classic rainbow cookie.
Oof, the rainbow cookies, the tricolors.
The tricolors. That's right.
I think that's the name of them, the tricolor cookies. Oh yeah,
marzipan spread in between the layers. They're all flavored up as far as like the colors. I think it's just dyed. I'm pretty sure they all taste the same. But that's well beyond anything I need to know. It doesn't matter if they're the same flavor. If they're not, I'm gonna go into any diner, any bakery, any market ever, and I'm gonna buy 47 of them in one go because they're so good.
I don't even care if I dropped $80 on them. It's well worth it.
Shout out, Mr. Cookie. Sorry, you're closed. Absolute gas.
For good. But shout out Eric for showing us that sweet Italian, I guess, would you say like delicatessen?
Italian market. It was Soprano's Italian market.
Okay.
For all the people wondering, Waverly, New York, Soprano's Italian market. Get over there ASAP. If it's about
absolutely
a minute
delicious.
Off the highway, worth it.
They make amazing subs. I only had one there, and I would go back every single day if I could. And then obviously they have very good baked items that I believe they also make. Absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious. Did not disappoint at all.
I was talking about it with my brother and sister-in-law the other day. In this case, Ian knows them, Kat and TJ.
Kat and TJ
was talking about them because they actually lived over near there in a town just near Waverly there. I won't shout them out and put them on or anything. But they had lived over near there, and I was bringing up that Italian market because I had said something about me and my buddy going to play up in Shepherd Hills, which you were there with us. And that stemmed into us talking about the Italian market, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, are you talking about Sopranos?" And then we had a whole discussion about the sandwiches, and then I was reminiscing about how many baked goods I could remember, and they were like, "Oh yeah, if you go back, you got to try," and they were listing off a little bit of everything.
I think we got cannolis too. Oh, dude. Okay, that's my shout out. Like, what'd you say? I'm trying to think of the word you use. Either way, like cannolis are like a top, like that's a close one for another type of pastry for me. Truthfully, it's right up there with the cinnamon roll.
It's good. It's good. Yeah. It's great. And cinnamon rolls, obviously, you can't deny. This is kind of what Ian and I were discussing earlier about people finding that need in their system for the sweet tooth craving, and they don't really need to do it. It's just a matter of a craving, and that's pretty much it. And as far as dessert goes and the way sugar's put together, you could basically throw sugar into anything as long as you bake it right, mix it with a couple good ingredients. It'll come out into something wonderful. And that's what's so good about baked goods, is because you kind of get this chance to eat something that isn't something that you need to survive. Like it's not similar to protein, it's not similar to carbs, it's not like pasta, it's not rice. It's its own thing. And it's just this sweet little concoction made up of anywhere from 3 to 12 ingredients, and it just goes hard every single time. And so I'm glad we've come this far to enjoy what we want when we want it, and not have to worry about going hunting earlier in the day to catch a deer for dinner or something like that.
Listen, shout out all the people that died before us testing out all of these ingredients.
R.I.P.
They are the true unsung heroes.
The ghosts,
you should be thankful. You should be thankful that they have gone through the ringer to try and find the best ingredients. That's all I'm saying. Shout those guys out.
Well, good. That's a perfect spot to end because they really are the OG VIPs. Thank you guys for being there when we needed you most. We are forever in your debt and your service.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we can wrap up here nicely because we just hit that marker. So thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed the little baked goods talk. And as per usual, if you're watching on YouTube, check us out on Spotify. Give us a follow there. If you're listening on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. Give us a subscribe there. That'd be greatly appreciated. And if you got any comments, questions, concerns, ideas for us to talk about, we'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment wherever you can. I don't know, Spotify's a little weird, but definitely on YouTube. And then right when you're over there, you just head right over here and then to the left and down, up, left, back, right, up, diagonal. But on that note, again, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys on the flippy flop. Peace.